Prisoner alien woman falls in love with human man. The patrol ship drifted through the silent void of space, its metal hull glinting faintly under the distant light of a dying star. Inside, Lieutenant Ethan Carter paced along the narrow corridor, checking the security logs on the touchscreen panel beside the reinforced doors. He had been on countless missions before, but this one felt different. He wasn't just escorting a prisoner. He was about to meet someone who, by all accounts, should have been a dangerous criminal. And yet, there was something in the way the intel described her that made his curiosity grow, despite the warnings. "Lieutenant, the prisoner's containment module is stable. No breaches detected," the voice of the ship's AI, Halo, echoed in the corridor. Its calm, neutral tone was almost soothing, contrasting sharply with the tension Ethan felt inside. "Good." "Keep it that way," Ethan replied, his hand brushing over the side of the wall as he continued to pace. The module itself was at the center of the ship's secure sector, a reinforced chamber with transparent panels made of hyperdense alloy. Inside, a woman stood alone, her posture rigid and her expression unreadable. Her skin shimmered faintly under the artificial light, a subtle iridescence that marked her as not human. She had bright silver eyes that seemed to pierce through everything, and hair that shifted color slightly depending on the angle of the light. Every detail screamed that she was different, that she was dangerous. Yet she didn't look threatening, at least not the way the reports had made her out to be. Ethan studied her carefully. She was tall, slender, and moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural. He had expected defiance, maybe even hostility, but she was quiet, watching him as intently as he was watching her. "I'm Lieutenant Ethan Carter," he said carefully, stepping closer to the containment module. "I'll be escorting you to the research facility. Your journey will be long, so it's better if we maintain civility." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smirk. "You speak as if civility matters to me," she said, her voice smooth, melodic, but carrying an edge that made him instinctively wary. "I don't answer to humans, Lieutenant. I answer to no one." Ethan nodded slowly. "We'll see about that," he said, though there was no aggression in his tone. He turned back toward the control panel, tapping a sequence of commands. The containment module hummed softly as the security protocols engaged, preparing for the long voyage. For the next few hours, the ship moved steadily through the expanse, the only sound the gentle hum of its engines. Ethan took the time to study the prisoner. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed every movement he made. It was as if she was analyzing him as thoroughly as he was analyzing her. Most humans might have felt intimidated, but Ethan had faced dangerous aliens before. What intrigued him was not fear, but the sense that she was clever, far more than most creatures he had encountered. "I am called Lyra," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet. Ethan stopped, surprised by her choice to speak. "I know," he replied calmly. "Halo has your full profile. I've read it." Her silver eyes narrowed slightly. "Profiles are lies. They show only what others want to see. You humans always judge by what you are told." Ethan considered her words. It was true, humanity had a tendency to label things in black and white, good or bad, dangerous or harmless. "Then show me the truth," he said. "I'm willing to learn." Lyra's gaze softened for just a moment, almost imperceptibly. Then she looked away, her arms crossing as she leaned back against the wall of her module. "Interesting," she muttered. "Most humans are not patient enough to ask that." For the first time since her capture, Ethan saw a flicker of something different, a hint of respect, perhaps, or curiosity. He had dealt with aggressive prisoners before, but this was new. There was a mind behind her defiance, and it was sharp. The calm of the voyage did not last long. A sudden alarm blared through the ship, red lights flashing violently. Ethan's heart quickened, and he rushed to the control panel. "Halo, report." "Unauthorized vessel detected on collision course," Halo responded. "Pirates. Unknown origin, likely hostile intent." Ethan cursed under his breath. Space piracy was rare this far from human colonies, and yet here it was. He activated the defensive protocols, sealing bulkheads and initiating evasive maneuvers. The patrol ship shuddered as it changed course, the silent void outside suddenly becoming a battlefield. Lyra pressed herself against the wall of her module, but her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with something akin to calculation. "You humans are slow to react," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "If I were in charge, you'd already be dead." Ethan froze for a moment. Her words were sharp, almost mocking, but they also carried insight. She understood strategy and danger. "Maybe," he said carefully, "but we're not just reacting, we're surviving." The ship jolted violently as a missile struck its hull. Sparks flew across the control deck, and Ethan had to steady himself. Lyra's eyes widened, her hand pressing against the glass of her module. For a moment she looked intrigued. "Impressive," she said softly. "You are more resilient than I expected." Ethan gritted his teeth and worked quickly, rerouting power to the shields, stabilizing the engines, and issuing commands to the ship's automated defense turrets. Every action he took was precise, deliberate, and effective. He had been trained for this, but something in him, the human instinct to protect, to survive, to fight, not just for himself but for others, guided him. Lyra watched silently, and for the first time Ethan noticed a subtle change in her posture. She wasn't tense anymore. She wasn't aggressive. She was watching, learning, absorbing. The pirate's vessel appeared suddenly on the main screen, sleek and dark, bristling with weaponry. Ethan's mind raced. There was no time to follow protocol fully, no time to wait for reinforcements. He made a split-second decision and launched a counterattack, aiming to disable their engines rather than destroy the ship entirely. The strategy worked. The pirate ship faltered, unable to match the maneuvering of Ethan's patrol craft. In the brief lull, the ship's sensors picked up something unexpected, a small vessel emerging from the pirate ship's hold, carrying additional attackers. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Halo, activate the secondary containment shields," he ordered. "Lyra, I need you to stay calm. Do not interfere unless I ask." "Why should I listen to you?" she asked, her voice low but not defiant. "Because your survival depends on it," he said simply. His eyes met hers. There was no threat in his tone, only clarity. For a moment, she seemed to weigh his words, then she nodded ever so slightly. The next several minutes were a blur of activity. Ethan and the automated systems worked in perfect harmony, defending the ship, evading attacks, and protecting the prisoner at the center of it all. Lyra observed every move, analyzing every tactic, and even offered a brief suggestion that helped redirect one of the incoming missiles. When the final attack subsided, the patrol ship floated in the quiet void once again, hull scarred but intact. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Lyra turned to him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You are remarkable," she said. Ethan shook his head with a tired smile. "I'm just a human," he replied. "We surprise even ourselves sometimes." Lyra studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps," she said finally, "humans are not as simple as I thought." For the first time, Ethan felt a strange sense of connection. The woman in front of him, the alien labeled as a criminal, was more than her record. She had intelligence, wit, and a mind that rivaled any strategist he had known. And despite her past, despite the danger she posed, he found himself curious, not just about her story, but about her. The ship's engines hummed steadily as it continued toward the research facility, the distant stars casting their pale light through the viewport. Ethan returned to his post, but his mind lingered on the prisoner. She was a challenge, a puzzle, and perhaps, he realized, a companion in a journey neither of them had expected. Lyra, in her containment module, watched him silently, a strange mix of respect and amusement in her eyes. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and mysteries, but for the first time she felt something unexpected. A spark of curiosity about the humans who captured her and the one who did not seem afraid of her. The patrol ship sailed onward, carrying them both toward a future uncertain, yet filled with possibilities neither had imagined. The patrol ship moved steadily through the empty black of space, its hull scarred from the recent pirate attack. Ethan Carter sat in the command deck, his hands resting lightly on the console, though his mind was far from calm. He had survived ambushes before, but there was something about this prisoner, Lyra, that kept him alert. She was no ordinary alien criminal. She was intelligent, clever, and unnervingly composed even under the most dangerous situations. He glanced toward her containment module. Lyra was standing as she had before, her silver eyes fixed on him. This time there was no challenge in her gaze, only a quiet curiosity. She had said little since the attack, but Ethan sensed she was thinking, calculating. He wondered if she saw him as an obstacle, a nuisance, or something else entirely. "Halo status report," he said, his voice calm but firm. "All systems stable," the AI replied. "The pirate vessel has been neutralized, no further threats detected in the vicinity. Course to the research facility remains clear." Ethan nodded. Good, keep monitoring sensors. I don't want any surprises. Lyra's voice cut through the quiet hum of the engines. Lieutenant, she said softly, why do you care so much about me? Most humans would have left me to my fate or worse. Ethan paused, his fingers hovered above the console. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. I'm not just protecting you because you're a prisoner. I'm protecting you because I can, because it's what humans do. We help when we can. Her lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. You speak as if morality is easy. It is not. In my world, survival comes first. There is no right or wrong. Ethan shook his head. Maybe that's true in your world, but in mine there is, and right now, helping you is the right thing to do. Lyra remained silent after that, but Ethan noticed her posture relaxed slightly. She was watching him, but not with suspicion this time. There was something else in her gaze, curiosity, maybe even respect. Hours passed in tense silence. The patrol ship cruised through the vast emptiness, its hull occasionally reflecting the distant glow of stars. Ethan stayed at the command deck, monitoring systems and plotting their course, while Lyra observed from her module. He noticed her eyes following every movement, noting the way he adjusted controls, the decisions he made in real time. It was as if she were learning from him, studying human behavior. Then, without warning, a new alert flashed across the console. Unidentified vessel approaching fast, Halo announced. Ethan straightened instantly. Show me, he commanded. The view screen displayed a sleek, dark ship moving at high speed, its design unfamiliar. It wasn't a pirate vessel, but it was heavily armed and its approach was aggressive. Ethan's mind raced. Whoever it was, they wanted something or someone on his ship. Lyra's silver eyes widened slightly. More trouble, she said calmly. You humans attract it everywhere. Ethan smirked. Seems so. He quickly calculated their options. The new ship was faster, and trying to outrun it could risk the patrol ship's engines. Fighting directly would be dangerous. He needed a plan, and fast. Halo, prepare the secondary defense turrets. Arm all countermeasures. Lyra, I might need your help. She tilted her head. Why would I help you? You have already survived one attack without me. Because this one is different, he said. Your knowledge of alien technology could make the difference between survival and destruction. For a long moment, she studied him. Then, with a flick of her hand, she tapped on the glass of her module. The panel responded, opening a secure link that allowed her to interface with some of the ship's systems. Fine, I will help for now, but do not mistake this for trust, she warned. Ethan nodded, not offended. He understood. Trust had to be earned, and she had every reason to doubt humans. Together, they worked quickly. Lyra analyzed the incoming vessel's movement patterns, predicting its trajectory and weapon firing intervals. Ethan coordinated the ship's defenses, rerouting power to shields and turrets. The two of them moved in perfect, if tense, coordination. The first attack came suddenly, a barrage of energy pulses aimed directly at the patrol ship. The shields absorbed most of the impact, but the hull groaned under the pressure. Ethan shouted instructions, adjusting the ship's position to minimize damage, while Lyra intercepted a portion of the energy pulses using a makeshift deflection algorithm she quickly devised. Impressive, she said, her voice calm even as the alarms blared. You think fast under pressure. I see why humans survive so well. Ethan couldn't help but smile despite the chaos. Experience helps, he said, maneuvering the ship through the void like a dancer weaving through obstacles. And having a good partner helps more. Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. She didn't answer immediately, but the slightest flicker in her eyes betrayed something, approval perhaps. The enemy ship was relentless. It tried multiple angles of attack, attempting to disable their engines and shields. Ethan and Lyra worked together seamlessly, anticipating each move and countering it. For the first time, Lyra seemed to see humans not just as a predictable species, but as resourceful, adaptable, and brave. Finally, with a well-timed maneuver, Ethan and Lyra managed to outmaneuver the ship. The enemy's engines overheated from the constant strain, forcing it to retreat into the void. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his chair. That should be the last of it for now, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra studied him for a moment, then said quietly, You are capable more than I expected. Ethan chuckled softly. You're learning to compliment humans now. Perhaps, she replied, her tone almost teasing. Or perhaps I am simply stating a fact. You survived. Many of your species would have failed. For a brief moment, the tension between them eased. They both knew the danger was not over. Space was unpredictable. But there was a new understanding growing. They were beginning to see each other not just as prisoner and guard, but as partners facing a common threat. Over the next several hours, the patrol ship continued its journey. Ethan stayed at the command deck, monitoring systems, while Lyra sat quietly in her module, occasionally interacting with the ship's AI to optimize energy distribution and shield efficiency. They exchanged few words, but the silence was no longer tense. It was a shared focus, a mutual respect forming quietly between them. At one point, Ethan approached her module, his steps careful. "Lyra, I want to understand you," he said gently. "Not just as a prisoner, but as a person. Your story, your people, everything. Will you tell me?" Lyra hesitated. She had shared little with anyone, and trust was not something she gave easily. But something in Ethan's steady gaze, in the way he carried himself, made her pause. Slowly she began. "My people are called Virelians," she said softly. "We were once a proud civilization, advanced in science and strategy, but politics destroyed us. Corruption spread and war followed. I was caught in it, branded a criminal for actions I did not commit." Ethan listened carefully, nodding. "That sounds unfair." "It is," she admitted, "and yet humans label me dangerous without knowing the truth. I'm not evil, I only survive as all do." Ethan's heart tightened slightly. He had faced injustice before, but hearing it from someone so different, someone he could see and understand, struck a chord. "Then we'll make sure the truth comes out," he said firmly. "You don't deserve what they did to you." Lyra studied him silently, her eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and curiosity. No human had ever offered to help her like this before, not just to keep her alive, but to understand her, to see her as more than a label. For the rest of the journey, they worked together quietly, repairing minor damage to the ship, monitoring sensors, and sharing occasional stories of their lives. Ethan spoke of his family, his training, and his experiences on the frontier. Lyra shared fragments of her life among the Virelians, her voice carrying pride and sorrow in equal measure. By the time the research facility came into view, a small blue dot against the vast darkness, a bond had begun to form between them. It was subtle, unspoken, but it existed, a connection forged through survival, respect, and shared challenges. Ethan prepared the ship for landing, running the final checks while Lyra assisted with sensor calibration. When the hull finally touched the docking platform, they both exhaled, relieved to have survived the journey together. As the docking clamps secured the patrol ship, Ethan turned to Lyra. "We made it," he said simply. "Yes," she replied, her voice soft. There was no edge to it now, no defiance, only a quiet acknowledgement. For the first time, she looked at him as someone she could rely on, someone more than just a human guard. Ethan smiled faintly. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The facility may have questions, but we'll face them together. You're not alone anymore." Lyra's silver eyes met his, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. Trust, understanding, perhaps the beginnings of something more. She nodded slowly. "Together," she agreed. The doors of the facility opened, welcoming them into the bright light of a new environment. Beyond it lay new challenges, new dangers, and new discoveries. But for the first time, both human and alien felt a spark of hope. Hope that even in a galaxy full of conflict, they could find allies, friendship, and perhaps something deeper. And so, side by side, Ethan and Lyra stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The research facility was a sprawling structure of silver, metal, and glass, perched on a small, rocky moon orbiting a distant gas giant. Its corridors were bright and pristine, humming with the quiet energy of technology and human activity. Ethan Carter guided the patrol ship into the docking bay, his mind still buzzing from the journey and the pirate attack. Beside him, Lyra remained quiet in her containment module, her eyes scanning the facility with sharp curiosity. She had survived humans before, but never one like Ethan. As the docking clamps locked the ship in place, a team of security officers approached, their faces serious and professional. "Lieutenant Carter," one of them greeted, "we received word of your prisoner. We'll handle the transfer from here." Ethan nodded, glancing at Lyra. "Halo, prepare the containment module for handover," he said. The module adjusted its internal settings, ensuring that Lyra would remain secure but comfortable. Lyra tilted her head, watching the security team with a mixture of caution and amusement. "So this is your world," she murmured, "clean, controlled, predictable. Ethan gave a small smile. Predictable enough to survive in, but don't be fooled, it has its dangers too. As the officers prepared to escort Lyra, Ethan placed a hand on the module's panel. Lyra, he said, I want you to know something. Here you will face questions, tests, and maybe even distrust. But I will be here. I will make sure you are treated fairly. Do you understand? Lyra's silver eyes met his. For the first time, there was no defiance, no sarcasm. Only something raw and honest, perhaps a hint of gratitude. I understand, she said quietly. The doors of the module slid open, and Lyra stepped out. Her movements were precise and careful, her eyes still scanning for threats. But there was a subtle difference from before. She no longer moved as though every human in the room was an enemy. She moved as though she were stepping into an unfamiliar world, wary but curious. The team escorted her through the facility, and Ethan followed closely behind. What happens now? She asked, her voice calm but laced with curiosity. You'll be questioned, Ethan explained. We need to understand who you really are and why you were labeled a criminal, but I will be present. You won't be alone. Lyra considered this. In my world, I would have been judged before a word was spoken, she said. Perhaps humans are different. Ethan gave a small nod. We try to be. Not all of us succeed, but some of us do. They reached a room that glowed with soft light, filled with consoles and displays. A human scientist stepped forward. Lieutenant Carter, he said, nodding to Ethan. And you must be the prisoner from the Virelian vessel. I'm Dr. Mara Lynn. We will conduct some scans and interviews to ensure your story is accurate. Lyra raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Scans, she repeated. You humans rely too much on technology to tell the truth. Mara smiled politely. It is just a precaution. Truth often hides in the details. Ethan guided Lyra to a chair designed to be comfortable and non-threatening. You don't have to fear this, he said. I will be here the whole time. Lyra studied him, then nodded. Very well, I will cooperate. But know this, Lieutenant, I do not lie to anyone, not even you. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile. I didn't expect you to. The scans began. Machines hummed and whirred, lights moving across Lyra's body as they assessed her physiology. She remained calm throughout, observing the technology with interest rather than fear. Ethan noticed the way she tilted her head slightly, analyzing every readout as if she were learning from it. While the scans continued, Ethan and Lyra spoke quietly, their voices low so the machines wouldn't interfere. Tell me about your people, Ethan asked. What makes Virelians different from humans? Lyra's silver eyes softened slightly as she spoke. We are a species of strategy and intellect. Every action is considered, every choice calculated. We survive by planning ahead, anticipating threats before they appear. But that also means we trust little. Trust is a weakness to many of my kind. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. And yet here you are talking to me, that means something. She looked at him sharply, a faint smile on her lips. Perhaps, or perhaps I am simply curious. Humans are unpredictable. That makes them interesting. For a moment they fell silent, listening to the hum of the machines. There was an unspoken understanding growing between them, a recognition that despite the vast differences between their species, there was a shared intelligence, a shared resilience. When the scans were complete, Dr. Mara Lynn spoke. The results confirm what we suspected. You are not dangerous in the way the reports claimed. Your physiology, your behavior, and your memories are consistent. However, we need to understand why you were involved in the events that led to your capture. Lyra's eyes flicked to Ethan. He nodded slightly, giving her permission to speak. I was caught in political strife, she began, her voice steady. My government was corrupt. Certain leaders orchestrated events to frame me. I was labeled a criminal to distract from their failures. I did not commit the crimes they accused me of. I acted to protect my people, and I failed in their eyes. That is all. Ethan listened quietly, impressed by her composure and honesty. It is not your fault, he said softly. You were in a situation beyond your control. Humans make mistakes too, but we try to correct them when we can. Lyra's gaze softened. You speak as if humans care for truth more than power. That is rare. Most of my experience with other species has been the opposite. Ethan nodded. Not all of us are perfect. But some of us fight for what is right, even when it's hard. That's what makes humans strong. That's what makes us worth knowing. Lyra considered his words. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, she asked, Do you always speak this way, Lieutenant? Ethan shrugged lightly. I speak how I feel. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I believe in it. and I believe in people who are willing to try even when the universe seems against them. Lyra's silver eyes studied him carefully. For the first time, Ethan saw something he hadn't before, a flicker of respect, perhaps even admiration. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The days that followed were filled with tests, questions, and evaluations. Ethan stayed by her side as much as he could, explaining human customs, clarifying misunderstandings, and protecting her from the more suspicious officers who doubted her innocence. Lyra responded in kind, teaching Ethan subtle tactics and strategies that Violians used, sharing insights into alien technology and behavior that fascinated him. One evening after a long day of questioning, Ethan found Lyra sitting alone in a quiet observation room staring out at the stars. He approached cautiously. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She glanced at him but did not move. "It is your choice," she said. Ethan sat beside her, leaning back and taking in the view. "It's strange," he said after a moment. "Even after all the danger I feel calm here, watching the stars with someone I've only just met." Lyra turned her head slightly to look at him. "Humans find comfort in simplicity." "Perhaps there is wisdom in that." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I think it's more than that. It's the people you share it with." For the first time, Lyra's expression softened. She didn't speak, but her eyes lingered on his, thoughtful and curious. As the night wore on, their conversation drifted to stories of home. Ethan spoke of Earth, of human colonies, of small moments of triumph and failure. Lyra shared tales of Violia, of cities of light and knowledge, of battles fought and lost. They laughed quietly at misunderstandings, debated strategies, and shared hopes for the future. Through it all, a subtle bond formed. It was not yet friendship, not yet trust, but it was the beginning of something neither of them fully understood. Ethan admired her intelligence, her resilience, and her courage. Lyra, in turn, began to see humans in a new light, not as simple creatures, but as beings capable of great ingenuity and bravery. By the end of the week, the facility had gathered enough information to clear Lyra of the crimes she had been accused of. She was technically free, though still under observation. But she no longer feared the humans around her. She had learned that there were some among them, like Ethan, who could be trusted. One evening, as they prepared to leave the observation room, Ethan looked at her. "Lyra, when this is over, what will you do?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I do not yet know. Perhaps I will return to my people, or perhaps I will see more of this galaxy. But one thing is certain, humans are worth knowing." Ethan nodded. "I think you'll find a lot more worth knowing, and I hope we can see it together." Lyra's silver eyes met his, and for the first time there was no challenge, no calculation, only acknowledgement. A silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. And as they walked out of the observation room, the stars outside glimmered like distant fires, reminding them both that the universe was vast, full of danger and wonder, and that even in its darkness, connection, trust, and perhaps something deeper could be found. The research facility had grown quieter over the past few days. Lyra's freedom within the complex allowed her to move between labs and observation rooms, though she remained under watch. Ethan Carter had been by her side whenever possible, guiding her, answering questions, and protecting her from suspicion. Their interactions had shifted from cautious politeness to something warmer, a growing trust that neither fully understood yet. But peace rarely lasted long in space. A sudden alarm echoed through the facility, and red lights bathed the corridors. Ethan's instincts immediately kicked in. "Halo status report," he barked. "Multiple unauthorized vessels approaching from orbital vectors," Halo responded. "They are armed and traveling at high speed, likely hostile intent detected." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Get Lyra now." "We're not letting them take her." Lyra appeared almost instantly at his side, moving with the fluid grace of someone trained for survival. "I am ready," she said, her voice steady but alert. "What is the plan?" Ethan took a deep breath, scanning the facility schematics on the main console. "We have a few advantages: reinforced doors, automated defense systems, and the element of surprise. But we need to be quick. They will breach the facility in under 5 minutes." Lyra nodded, her silver eyes narrowing. "Lead the way, human. I will follow." The facility shook as the first wave of attackers fired energy pulses against the external defenses. Sparks and flashes lit the dark halls outside the reinforced windows, and the hum of the facility's shields grew louder under pressure. Ethan and Lyra moved swiftly through the hallways, the sound of distant explosions echoing like a warning drum. Divide and confuse them, Lyra suggested as they reached a junction. They rely on numbers. We can turn that against them. Ethan raised an eyebrow but nodded. Good idea. Halo, lock down the main corridors and guide the intruders toward the defensive traps. The AI's voice was calm. Executing lockdown sequence. Lyra activated a portable device interfacing with the facility systems. Doors hissed closed behind them, rerouting the attackers into sections filled with non-lethal deterrents, energy nets, magnetic fields, and automated stun turrets. The first wave of intruders stumbled into the traps, struggling to adapt to the humans and Lyra's combined tactics. Ethan glanced at her impressed. You're a fast learner, he said, dodging a pulse of energy that ricocheted off the wall. Lyra smirked. I've survived worse. You'll see that humans can be unpredictable, yes, but so can I. Together, they moved like a single unit, Ethan directing strategy, Lyra calculating angles, predicting enemy moves, and disabling key systems with precision. Her knowledge of alien technology and combat tactics gave them an edge the attackers hadn't anticipated. They reached the central lab where several hostages and scientists had been cornered. Ethan's eyes swept the room. We protect them first, you handle the intruders. Lyra's hands moved swiftly, activating the lab's energy shields and sending automated defense drones to intercept the attackers. Sparks flew, and the room vibrated as energy pulses struck shields and walls. Ethan moved among the hostages, guiding them to cover and ensuring everyone stayed safe. You are more capable than I expected, Lyra admitted as she ducked under an incoming attack. Humans can be very effective when they care about something. Ethan smiled, dodging a flying piece of debris. We survive because we fight for others, not just ourselves. That's something we humans do well. For several tense minutes, they battled together. Lyra's speed, agility, and strategic thinking combined perfectly with Ethan's bravery and tactical knowledge. They moved through the lab, systematically disabling intruders and protecting civilians. Finally, the last intruder fell, subdued by a combination of Ethan's quick action and Lyra's clever traps. Silence returned, broken only by the lab's low hum and the heavy breathing of those who had just survived a deadly attack. Ethan turned to Lyra, who was standing amidst the chaos, her silver eyes scanning the room for any remaining threats. We did it, he said, his voice a mix of relief and admiration. Lyra tilted her head. Yes, together, you are not like other humans I have known. You care more than most. That is unusual. Ethan chuckled softly, helping a scientist to her feet. Maybe unusual is what makes humans interesting. Lyra studied him quietly for a moment. Interesting and brave, she said. I am beginning to see why humans are worth knowing. Ethan's heart skipped slightly. He had heard the words, but there was a weight behind them, a recognition that their bond was deepening, forged in the heat of shared danger. He cleared his throat. You're learning quickly, but bravery isn't enough without trust. Lyra's eyes met his. For the first time, there was no calculation, no hidden agenda, just honesty. I am learning trust, she admitted softly. With you, it is easier than with others. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by quiet tension. The facility was safe for now, but Ethan knew this was only one battle. The galaxy was full of threats, and someone powerful clearly wanted Lyra for their own purposes. They walked together through the damaged hallways, assessing the aftermath. Ethan touched a scorched panel and winced slightly. We'll need repairs, but everyone survived. That's what matters. Lyra's gaze swept the area, lingering on the humans who had been caught in the crossfire. You do not leave anyone behind, she said softly. Even your enemies you do not kill if it is not necessary. Ethan nodded. It's part of being human. We fight to protect, not to destroy. She considered this, then nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand. There is strength in your species beyond mere physical power. You fight for something larger than yourself. As they moved to a quieter section of the facility, Ethan noticed a change in her demeanor. She walked with confidence now, but there was a trace of vulnerability, a hint that the shared danger had forged something between them. He felt a protective instinct he hadn't expected, a desire to keep her safe, not just as a prisoner, but as someone who mattered. They reached the observation deck, a high platform overlooking the entire facility. Sparks from the battle outside illuminated the distant stars, and the vastness of space stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Ethan leaned against the railing, catching his breath. Lyra joined him, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the nebula beyond. "Why do you do this, Lieutenant?" she asked quietly. "Why protect me so fiercely when I am different?" Ethan looked at her, his expression earnest. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because you're not just different, you're remarkable. You survive, you adapt, and you think in ways I've never seen before. That deserves respect." Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You humans are strange creatures," she said softly. "You risk yourselves for others even when there is no gain. That is admirable." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. It wasn't just pride or relief. It was a connection, something that went beyond words. "It's who we are," he said, "and sometimes we find people worth fighting for no matter what." Lyra remained silent, but her eyes lingered on his. In that quiet moment, amidst the hum of the facility and the distant glimmer of stars, something unspoken passed between them. A bond forged through survival, respect, and shared courage. A bond neither fully understood, but both felt deeply. The night stretched on, and the facility began repairs. Ethan stayed with Lyra, helping her navigate the human environment, explaining the security protocols, and learning from her insights into alien strategy. They worked side by side, planning how to prevent future attacks and preparing for whatever might come next. By dawn, the facility was stable. The immediate threat was gone, but Ethan knew the galaxy was far from safe. Whoever wanted Lyra would not give up easily. But for the first time, he felt confident, not just because of the technology or the human defenses, but because of her. Lyra had proven herself an ally, a partner, and perhaps something more. She turned to him, her expression softening. "You saved many lives today," she said. "Not just mine, that is more than I expected from humans." Ethan shrugged lightly, a modest smile on his face. "We do what we can, and I'm glad we did it together." Lyra's silver eyes met his, and in that quiet, fleeting moment there was a spark, a recognition that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. The trust, the respect, and the bond forged in battle had grown stronger, and both of them knew that this was only the beginning of a deeper connection. And as the first light of the distant sun touched the facility, casting long shadows across the corridors, Ethan and Lyra stood together, ready to face the next challenge the universe would throw at them, knowing they were stronger together than apart.